Welcome back. As you're getting your lunch and finding your seats, I wish we could let everybody get their food and find their seats before we start our program, but we do need to keep moving. There is not a lengthy list, but a very, very important list of some people who have been absolutely critical to the success of our industry, who deserve recognition, and that's the next part of our program. To kick off that part of our program, I want to bring up one of our industry's most valued partners and one of our important sponsors of our symposium. Speaking for the RDOG Group is Carson Wright.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Not everybody knows who RDOG Glass is, but a lot of people have used our products in the past. And I'm speaking on behalf of the RDOG Group today. I'm the Northwest representative for our division. My name is Carson Wright, and we are the sponsor for this year's award lunch. RDOG Direct is a new division of RDOG Glass, giving wineries of all sizes the ability to purchase glass direct from our glass plants here on the West Coast. Our glass plants are located in Seattle, Washington, and Madera, California, and they've been serving the Northwest wine industry since its inception. We've had the pleasure of being a part of the Northwest wine community for many years. We've seen the effort, the difficulties, and the successes of the Northwest wine industry firsthand. Because of this, we are privileged to be the sponsor of this event, which honors that effort, and we want to congratulate all of the recipients of today's awards. So, congratulations, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Carson. Okay, so we're going to get into our awards program here. Before we do, I want to make just a couple of very, very quick statements. Not related to the awards, but a couple things I just need to make sure you're aware of. One of our industry's most valued partners is Hagen Hamilton Insurance Brokerage, and there is a guy running around here somewhere, Gary Eastland, and he went to the trouble after talking to some in our industry who were witnessing what went on in Sonoma and in Napa last fall with fire damage, and he realized there were a lot of unanswered questions. Wherever Gary is, I'm going to ask him to come up here and be up here at the end of the awards presentation, because there are some coverage issues, coverage questions that are commonly asked about how an Oregon wine business can protect itself should a wildfire be an issue in their area and affect their farm. Gary has some answers for you. And I'm going to ask Gary at the end of the awards presentation to be up here on my left in case there's anybody here who has some questions. A couple other announcements real quick. If you were in the seminar given yesterday where we talked about the margin and the profit calculator, Tim Hanai and Bree Boskoff and Jeff Peterson gave a great seminar. We talked in there about the profit and the margin calculator. While if you were in that seminar or if you weren't, you'll be getting more detail on that in our Oregon Wine Board Grapevine newsletter, because there will be a series of rollout sessions going on across the state at which you'll hear more about it. But there's one point of clarification that might have been a little bit murky yesterday. It's free. The whole thing is free. All components of the workbook that allow a vineyard owner or a winery owner to calculate gross margin, labor costs, production costs, marketing costs, all of it is free. That wasn't quite clear yesterday. You'll be hearing more about that, but please keep your eye on our Grapevine newsletter. We need to press on. Our awards program embraces both of our organizations that have brought you the symposium. The Oregon Wine Growers Association is on the docket here first because we gave out a historic award from the Oregon Wine Growers Association to an important recipient on behalf of the industry. And after that important presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about the Oregon Wine Board Awards and the annual series. We start there. To tell you a little bit about the award presentation that was made in the Capitol last month, I'm going to bring up our Director of Government Relations for the OWA, Jana McCamey.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Oregon Wine Growers Association presented the first Oregon Wine Leadership Award to Senator Jackie Winters at our annual meeting and legislative reception in Salem on January 10th. This new OWA award will be given on occasion to policymakers that have taken a leadership role in promoting as well as advancing and protecting the Oregon wine community through public policy initiatives. Senator Winters, a Republican representing the Salem area, has a lengthy record of advocacy on behalf of the Oregon wine industry. Despite a tough budget climate, Senator Winters was instrumental in securing $500,000 for the market access and research investment strategy you've heard about over the last few days. Maris will support critical industry research initiatives and promotional programs to help family-owned wine businesses reach new customers. This is the first direct allocation of state funding to the Oregon wine industry and reflects our economic development potential. In 2011, Senator Winters was the chief sponsor of the Oregon Wine Country License Plate Program, the first of its kind in the nation, and she worked to make sure that proceeds from plate sales go exclusively into wine and culinary tourism promotion. Starting in 2010, Senator Winters pushed the industry to come to a consensus on a new policy to govern commercial events and activities at wineries on farmland. This ultimately led to the passage of Senate Bill 841 in 2013 that allows unlimited marketing events, limited special events, kitchen facilities, and limited food service at permitted use wineries. Senator Winters was first elected to the Oregon State House in 1998 and has served as a state senator since 2003. She was recently selected by her colleagues to serve as Senate Minority Leader. She also recently agreed to serve as co-chair of the Oregon Wine Legislative Caucus. Due to commitments in Salem during the ongoing legislative session, she is unable to join us today. However, we do have a photo of her with the award that we presented on January 10th. We couldn't think of a more fitting policymaker to receive OWA's first Oregon Wine Leadership Award. So please join me in congratulating Senator Jackie Winters.
As Jana mentioned, that was the first time we've ever awarded a state legislator recognition from our industry, and it's hard, if not impossible, to find a better friend for grape growers and winemakers in Oregon than Senator Jackie Winters. So that was a really, really important step we needed to make to thank those who work so hard on our behalf as an industry. We're going to turn the page now and move into the Oregon Wine Board Awards presentation, and we're going to kick it off with an award that recognizes our A-List program award winner. This is a program of ours that accepts nominations from people all over the country in the trade, nominating restaurants for their support, recognition, merchandising, and staff training around serving Oregon wine in some of the country's best restaurants. So to recognize this year's award winner, I'll bring up our Oregon Wine Board Director and Oregon Wine Growers Association Board Member, Eugenia Keegan.
Tom, I have the distinct honor today of presenting the A-List Restaurant Award. I'm quite excited about that. This award was started a few years ago to give us an opportunity to recognize, to honor, and to thank those restaurants around the country, hopefully one day around the world, who really go above and beyond in their excellence, standard of presentation, depth and breadth of Oregon wines on their lists, and continuing education with their consumers, a very important part of this. I think we all know how important these gatekeepers are, the restaurateurs, wine buyers, somms, and the dedicated wait staff that every night get a chance to talk to our consumer And when they recognize and talk about Oregon, the state that we love and the wines that we love, you can imagine the impression that it makes. So this year's award, drum roll please, envelope, thank you, goes to City Winery. And yes, thank you. City Winery has 5 locations now around the United States. And many of you know Michael Dorf. Michael, in fact, was our keynote speaker here 2 years ago at this particular program. And many of you know Rachel Driver, who works out of the Chicago office, and I have done a wonderful dinner with her. And today we have with us from New York City, the beverage director, Gana Fedorova. Gana, thank you and welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited, honored, and humbled to be here and to accept this award on behalf of City Winery. City Winery is a very unique concept that combines a fully functional winery in an urban setting, a concert space, and a restaurant. Across our 5 locations in the US and major markets, we build a strong case in support of Oregon wines. Every region of the state is getting representation and love on our wine lists. And, excuse me, and every major style of wine. We offer Oregon wine by the bottle and by the glass in our programs. We train our sommelier teams to sell it and approach guests and educate them on what the wines are, where they come from, and who are the people who are behind those wines. We also bring in grapes from Oregon and make wines in our city wineries. Right now, we just released a library wine, 2009 Highland Vineyard Pinot Noir, made in Manhattan, and it is spectacular. The wine has such a beautiful aging potential. I just want to say how happy I am that we have this incredible state with so many people behind these beautiful wines. We recognize your uncompromised integrity and your dedication to quality, and we celebrate it with you and with our guests. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you very much for this award. It's an honor.
Kevin Chambers again. It's always a pleasure to show gratitude. One of the, and this award that I'm going to give is for the individual who in our industry has shown great leadership over time. And you should know that we don't give out all of our awards every year, but I will tell you that this recipient, I think is overdue. Many of you are probably unaware of one of the great benefits that we have to our industry in the research side, and that's the Small Fruit Center based in Corvallis. It has offices in other areas of the Northwest, Idaho and Washington as well, but the main office is in Corvallis. And that's all funded by USDA, Agricultural Research Service. And we got that center in 1990. It provides us with a great deal of new information, certainly perhaps even a greater benefit in terms of extension, that is bringing these scientists and researchers into the field to help us do what we do better. This year's recipient is a scientist who's been at that center for many years, and since 2004 has been the research leader of the Small Fruit Center in Corvallis. He does a great deal of work for us. He currently chairs our Grapevine Improvement Committee, and there's a lot going on there because of the scourge of red blotch virus. This year's recipient, and I hope he doesn't leave or go fly fishing after he gets this award, because we really need his continued work. This year's Industry Leadership Award winner is Dr. Bob Martin.
I'm honored and surprised. Thank you very much for the recognition. And I was trying to think of what I could say about leadership, and there's two things. Hire good people, stay out of their way, and that means maybe deflecting some administrative BS that comes along the way, helping them find dollars whenever possible. You know, in ARS, we have to spend our money by September 30th, and you'll be surprised how many of people across the country don't do that. So usually in late August, we have a wish list and to help people spend money that weren't able to. And by doing that, we've been able to probably acquire several $1 million worth of equipment for our unit. So hire good scientists, let them hire good people. But the other key thing we have, that I have in our office, is we have two outstanding people in our front office. They're can-do people. You know, in ARS, it's a federal government. We have a whole bunch of policies and procedures, rules and regulations. That can be a good thing. You say, really? Yes, it can be a good thing, because there's enough policies and procedures or rules and regulations we have to follow that if you have really good can-do people, they can search out and figure, if I want to do something, they might say, I'm not sure how, but I bet we can do it. And they will go through and find a policy and procedure somewhere that allows us to do it. So if we only had one policy and procedure, we wouldn't be that flexible. So even though it's an organization that's built to be very rigid, due to the way they have all their rules and regulations, we actually can be quite flexible. And the other thing we have is, you heard yesterday about the Oregon Wine Association going to the state legislature to get money, and that's benefiting the Oregon Wine Research Institute, which we participate in and benefit from some of those funds as well at the USDA. But as Kevin mentioned, we have the Northwest Center Research Center, Northwest Center for Small Fruit Research, and we have a liaison group that goes back to DC, it's probably about 30 years now, and they carry the message of needs for the industries in the Northwest. And over the years, we've been able to get 6 or 7 new positions funded here. Back in 2013, there were only 2 new positions funded across the country, and we got one of those. And they've been able to get grant resources and maintain those for the research programs, to the tune of about $1 million a year. So the organization, the Northwest Center for Small Fruit Research, our liaison committee has been very, very effective, and there's members from the Oregon wine industry that have been involved in that from the get-go. And for that, we thank you, and hopefully we can keep working together. We have a large research group between OSU, WSU, USDA, and I think we've got the capacity to do good work and hopefully help you make better wines. And I'm going to use this. You can be assured of that. Thank you very much.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Ellen Britton of Britton Vineyards.
And I'm Doug Tennell from Brickhouse Wine Company. You know, in case you haven't heard, there's a new kid on the block when it comes to wine studies in Oregon, Linfield College in McMinnville. It's launched a liberal arts-based wine studies minor, and it's expected to launch a full major just next month. You know, Linfield was the college that started the Oregon Wine Archive, and Linfield students today are cleaning out cellars, working in tasting rooms and bottling lines all around the North Valley. They're studying the DNA of wild yeasts, mapping climate data under the guidance of climatologist Dr. Greg Jones, who we heard from earlier today, and analyzing retail sales trends in a very dynamic wine market. Last month, you could even find Linfield students knocking around the moldy cellars of Burgundy, where the college signed new cooperation agreements with the University of Burgundy in Dijon. All of this is due largely to the vision, the initiative, and the determination of one man, Linfield's president, Dr. Thomas Helly. A passionate supporter of Oregon wine, Tom had the wisdom to see that a liberal arts college located in the heart of the Willamette Valley could offer its students a unique wine curriculum not available at other institutions. And at the same time, he saw that he could offer our wine industry really specific benefits: savvy, knowledgeable, and highly motivated talent.
I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Helly as Director of Wine Education at Linfield from January 2015 to April 2017, when I very happily and gratefully turned the reins over to Dr. Greg Jones, who's going to take the program and really run with it going forward. Tom was the driving force behind creating this new position, and I was honored to be able to work with him to help realize his vision for a truly unique wine studies program. Tom's passion for wine, combined with his strategic foresight in envisioning a program that would fit within Linfield's overall mission and take advantage of Linfield's special relationship with our industry, has resulted in a wine studies program that is truly unique not only nationally but internationally. It is the only multidisciplinary liberal arts-based program in the world. On a personal note, I also have to mention that Tom, while he clearly sees the strategic potential of the wine program at Linfield, he is also very personally engaged as a true lover of fine food and wine and a student of all things wine-related. Tom would often come to my office when I was at Linfield after an especially hard day as a college president, which is a very difficult job, and talk to me about one of our wine-related programs. And I could see him get visibly re-energized and enthusiastic, and his passion and enthusiasm were inspirational to me, as they are to all the faculty and staff at Linfield, who are working very hard to make sure that Tom's vision for Linfield's wine program becomes a reality.
For all the many benefits that he's brought to our industry, Ellen and I are honored today to present Dr. Tom Helly with the Oregon Wine Board's Industry Partner Award for 2018.
It was about 30 years ago when I was reading a wine magazine that I first heard of Linfield College. There was a story about a relatively new Pinot Noir festival at a small college in Oregon. And I was intrigued because it blended two of my great passions, independent higher education and Pinot Noir. And so I was truly fortunate about 13 years later when I was offered the presidency of Linfield College. And it's been my great pleasure to serve in that role for now 12 years. What we are doing and what we have done would not have occurred were it not for the great commitment, effort, talent, and passion of many Linfield faculty, students, trustees, and staff. And so I share this award with them. But I also want to thank all of you for everything that you have done for our state, for making such great wine, and for giving me what is, without question, the best birthday present I've ever had. Thank you all very much, and congratulations to all of you for the good work that you are doing.
Hello, my name is Sadie Drury, and I get to present the Vineyard Excellence Award, and I'm really excited about this. The person receiving this Vineyard Excellence Award today has dedicated his entire career to working in the agricultural industry, with the last 27 years focusing on growing world-class wine grapes. He moved to Melton Free Water in 1979, where he and his wife raised their 4 kids, and he worked in orchards for many years until in 1990 he started working for Norm McKibben. At that time, he helped plant Pepperbridge Vineyard. There isn't a job that this person can't do or won't do, and it was this hardworking attitude that helped him work his way up to the ranks of becoming a supervisor and manager. In 1997 and 1998, the recipient helped plant 170 acres at Seven Hills Vineyard on the Oregon side of the Walla Walla AVA. Over the last 10 years, he's also been involved in planting an additional 600 acres in the Sylvain development. His knowledge of the vines and the site are unsurpassed by anyone I know. He is also constantly learning to improve his viticulture skills, which he successfully teaches to all of the crew. I don't think there is a vine in the Sylvain development he hasn't touched. I'm thrilled today to introduce you to today's recipient, Leobardo Lupe Gomez.
Yes, I want to say thank you to everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Norm McKibben, and I drove down, or actually I rode down with Casey McClellan from Walla Walla today on icy roads for 240 miles to be able to give this to him. But before I give you a couple comments on Casey, I have to point at Lupe, who just got his award up here. I've worked with him for so long, I've even forgotten when we started, but it's been a great ride, Lupe. So about 1985, I retired, came back to the Walla Walla Valley, and there were already 3 wineries there. And over the next few years, 1 or 2 more came on. 1989, Casey started his winery, although to give him credit, and I think he was a lot younger than he is now, he had helped his father put the first grapes on the old block at Seven Hills. And so it took him a few years to get around to making wine out of them. Over the years that followed, and the valley has grown a lot. I think at the time Casey came on board, he made winery number 5. I don't know how many are there now because I lose track of them, but it's something over 140 wineries. When I went on the Washington Wine Commission years ago, there were 170 in the state. So, and I joined the Oregon Wine Board back when it started, long enough to say hello to everybody because I'm a native Oregonian out of Oregon State. I wanted to come back and say hello, and I appreciate all of you here, believe me. So, Casey, if you'd like to come up.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to accept this award today. I'm not particularly sure what I've done to deserve it, but I do know a couple of things after almost 35 years in the business. First, as many of you are aware, it takes a strong partner and an engaged, committed community to create something out of nothing in this wine business. And I've been fortunate to have both over the years. In that regard, this award is as much my wife Vicky's as it is mine, as we worked side by side for over 3 decades in the Walla Walla Valley AVA, starting in the early days at Seven Hills Vineyard, and then through the 11 years as Eastern Oregon's only winery, and the last 15 years with McClellan Estate Vineyard. I've also had the pleasure of working with talented, dedicated viticulturists and vineyard managers, including Tom Walliser at Seven Hills for the last 20 years, and Leonard Brown at McClellan Estate for the last 15. I think it's a great example of long-term relationships and the beauty of long-term vision in our industry. As well, I'm also very thankful for the larger wine community in the Walla Walla Valley for their collegiality and their support over these decades. Secondly, another thing I know is that I've got an enduring love for the great state of Oregon, its agriculture and its wine industry. And I hope that during my time in this business, I've done a little bit to enlarge our vision of what Oregon wine can be and what it can become geographically, varietally, and stylistically. It's been a great privilege, and it continues to be a privilege for my wife Vicki and I to work with such a passionate, committed industry that has done such a successful job of creating a world-renowned wine region. Thank you for the recognition, and I think the journey will continue.
Good afternoon. There's some tough acts to follow here today, I've got to tell you. During my tenure as board chairman in 2017, I had the good fortune of having two outstanding board directors serve their sixth and final year. At my side last year, I had Ellen Britton as chair emeritus and Doug Tennell as vice chair. And it was a tremendous help for me to succeed in that role. It's a great thing for our industry when we attract professional industry talent from outside of Oregon. That was our good fortune when more than a decade ago, Ellen Britton brought her outstanding business background and Napa wine industry experience to bear on our Oregon industry with the startup of Britton Vineyards. A former board chairwoman, Ellen has served on the OWB's marketing and education committees, chairing the latter, and the engagement committee, public policy and land use committees for OWA. Ellen also began the Linfield Wine Business Program, as you just noticed, and both she and Doug Tennell have been instrumental in that outstanding program. Doug is also a trustee for Linfield College. There's more to our business than growth, scores, and profitability. We also strive for a high bar of personal and company values and integrity in all that we do. Doug Tennell, after a highly successful career in television journalism, has spent nearly 30 years developing the Brickhouse Wine Company into one of Oregon's finest. I can't think of anyone who brings a set of environmental issues to our industry as Doug does. During Doug's tenure on the board and as chair of the Land Use Committee, he has been a beacon of exemplary land use and public policy. I've also viewed Doug as, in my view, the good conscience of our wine industry. If Doug weighs in on a land use or public policy topic, I can't wait to open his email because I really value what he has to say. So it's my honor to give the Oregon Wine Board Service Awards to two real titans of our Oregon Wine Board and OWA work over the last 6 years, Ellen Britton and Doug Tennell.
Thank you so much. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to Tom Danowski and the incredible professional staffs that we have at OWB and OWA who made this really fun and much easier than it actually looks. I thoroughly enjoyed my board service. I learned an incredible amount about board governance as well as about our industry and really broadened my horizons out of McMinnville and Willamette Valley and really to understand what's going on throughout the state and our $5.6 billion industry. Love that number. So I would encourage all of you who have an interest to consider board service. The best way to start is through our committee program. So if you have an interest in marketing or education or public policy or wherever your interests lie, join a committee, learn about the board, and consider board service. And thank you.
Thank you so much for this award. I, over the last few years, have learned two things as part of my service to the OWB and the OWA. The first is, as Ellen said, Tom's put together a super team. They need our support. And in fact, you don't have a choice. They're there working for you. You do have a choice with regard to the OWA, and that's the other thing I learned. It's so important that we join, that we become members of the Oregon Wine Growers Association, and that we have a voice. It's never been more important than it is now, given the political climate, that this industry has a voice in Salem and beyond in politics. And that's what the OWA is offering, and I hope everyone joins. Thank you so much.
I love following Doug Tennell. My name is Matt Burson. I'm from Love and Squalor Wines. And it is my great honor and with deep sadness that I'm here today to present the Lifetime Achievement Award to Patricia Green. Patty was my teacher, she was my friend, and she was my inspiration. And she was a badass lady. And I miss her. Many of you in this room knew Patty well, and some of you probably only knew of her, but her reputation in our community and across the country was huge and joyous. And it all starts with her laugh. The first time I met Patty actually was at the IPNC, and actually I didn't meet her at all, but I heard her laugh. It was burbling out of one of the Vineyard tour buses, and I said, "What's that?" And, "Oh, that's just Patty," was the reply. What an infectious and cool calling card. Patty's path to wine was circuitous, even more than most of ours. She made her way across the country from Illinois to the West Coast. She slept in vans and she slept in caves, in houses and she slept under stars. She fished the waters and she replanted the forests of Oregon. And then she met Richard Summer at Hillcrest and found her true calling there. Then she made her name there, and at La Garza and at Torrey Moore way back in the day. And then she put her name, that name, on her own winery in the heart of Ribbon Ridge. And man, the wines were just so good. We laud her today and mourn her passing, in part because she was among the last of a generation of hippie, mad scientists, back-to-the-land winemakers. With the growth of our industry and the expanded base of knowledge over time of viticulture and winemaking in this region, we now have a modern model of how to make wine in the Willamette Valley and also how to market and sell it. Now, all that's fine if it works for you, but back in the day, a wide-eyed mountain lady with mud on her boots and a dream of Pinot Noir in her laugh could go on to have her own winery and to be toasted around the world for expressive bottlings and to become the Patty Green that everyone knows and who we honor here today. Accepting this award for Patty is Maddie Russell, the cellar master of Patricia Green Cellars.
On behalf of Patty and all of us at Patricia Green Cellars, I'm very honored to be here today and accept this award on Patty's behalf. I'm sure she'd be very surprised. Who, me? yet very humbled by the thought of having been recognized by so many esteemed colleagues of hers. And I know that some of the board members have worked with Patty directly and some indirectly over the years, and so they understand the impact and presence that she brought to the wine industry, which started as a crazy little idea and has turned into one of the major contributors of our state's economy. If we were able to ask Patty today what she thought was the key to her success, I'm sure she would answer that it was farming. That was where her true passion lied, and that was her happy place. She was very in tune with the vineyards that she managed and very in tune with the vineyards that she sourced fruit from. She always had a saying that you should always leave something better than it was when you found it. And as far as that goes, I'd say mission accomplished. So I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity to speak a little bit about Patty, and we all miss her terribly. So thank you very much.
There should be an extra acknowledgement to Amy Wesselman for the help that she gave in putting together and helping Matt and Maddie put together those remarks, and for the tribute that she gave shortly after Patty passed away. It's well-deserved, obviously a woman very well-loved. It's hard not to think of Patty again when you open up your current copy of the Wine Spectator, if you've done it as I did a couple days ago, and turn to page 84 where Tim Fish wrote that no mention of the 2015 Oregon Pinots can pass without a nod to winemaker Patty Green, who died in an accident just as she was making some of the best wines of her career. What a wonderful and thoughtful and tremendously, unfortunately, timely memorial to someone on whose shoulders we stand. Thank you, Matt and Maddie, for that. Thank you, Amy Wesselman, and thank you all of those who contributed to the memorial for Patty. It shouldn't go without recognition that we also lost another very treasured member of our community. Elizabeth Chambers passed away a few weeks ago, and her service will be this Saturday in Eugene, a celebration of life in Eugene, and there's details if you'd like that. Just grab me after, or JP Velo or Artie Weiner. All these passages are obviously very sad, but we stand on the shoulders of some great, great people, and it's our job now to carry that work forward. But please join me in recognizing, with some applause, the great contributions those two women made to our industry. As you can see over the past 45 minutes or so, the range, breadth, and depth of talent in this industry, geographically, across vineyards, across wineries, across genders, is absolutely extraordinary. And the folks who have paraded up here over the last 45 minutes were given just an absolutely brutal assignment. Those who were presenting awards were given a grand total of 2 minutes to try to cram as much as they could about why these people were these individuals you saw today were so deserving. And those who were so deserving and recognized by you were again given such a brief time. I wish we had more time. I commend Lupe for his tremendous brevity, but you certainly set the bar high for that. Thank you for that. Thank you to Norm and to Casey, who drove over through ice and snow. If you don't know it, they're both former Oregon Wine Board and Oregon Wine Growers Association directors. In fact, Norm is the only person I've ever met who served on both the Washington State Wine Commission and the Oregon Wine Board. Just a tremendous anchor for our industry's interest in the Walla Walla Valley. Thank you both for coming over, and thank you, Ghana, for coming out from New York to represent the City Winery, a great partner of ours. And thank you to all the recipients. Dr. Helly, you as well. Thank you. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but we need to press on. I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to recognize someone who hasn't been on the stage. We've talked a little bit about the Oregon Wine Growers Association and the Oregon Wine Board and the respective commitments and responsibilities that they have to our industry. They work in an interrelated and interdependent way to meet the tremendous range of needs that you have as growers and winemakers. You've heard from Jana and I and Kevin Chambers talking up here the last couple days about it, but I want to make sure you have a chance to acknowledge our absolutely vital partner who helps us serve you in the Oregon Wine Growers Association and helps us try to recruit more of you all the time. Please thank Jessica Bloward for her work. This is the last time we're going to be together in this large group. We've got a couple other elements of the program that will carry us on to the end of the day, but as far as a large group, this will be it. So I want to make sure that I kind of button up a couple things that we started with. You heard the opening remarks yesterday, and John Pratt tell you in his opening kickoff about how proud he was to be serving our industry, and he's just such a great example of a small family farmer working the land with his family, and that is so representative of our community. And I touched on yesterday how what we're trying to drive through all the work of the Oregon Wine Growers Association and the Oregon Wine Board is a thread of service to the emerging and the mid-sized family businesses right through the fabric of this industry. You've heard us talk about a couple of things, and I neglected to mention a couple though. When I was talking a little bit about the important work that was done by the Oregon Wine Growers Association in conjunction with Wine America and the California Wine Institute to pass that important tax legislation that will wind up saving every single winery in Oregon federal excise tax money, I neglected to mention a really important aspect that will help, hopefully, many, many growers also save money. If you've got a pen, I'd write this down, and if you don't, grab me after. You're going to want to make sure your tax accountant is very familiar with Section 13201. 13201. Ask your accountant to look into that, because starting January 1 of this year, what it does is enable a wine grape grower to deduct the full costs of grafting or replanting in the year those costs are incurred. You used to only be able to deduct half of replanting and grafting costs in the year they're incurred. Now you get to deduct the full cost of those in the year those that you spend that money. That's an important benefit to growers, and it's sort of the bookend to the federal excise tax relief that went on to help wineries. We talked a little bit about other ways that we are trying to help the small and emerging family business. We didn't talk much about OLCC, but if you're one of the wineries now that is able to sample their products before you're pouring at a festival and event, you're now free to do that from any concern about OLCC regulations that used to prohibit what they called drinking on duty. That product sampling is made possible by the OWA. You've heard us talk a little bit about fermentation sciences money, and I'm really glad that Kevin and Bob made that point. One thing you haven't heard much about, but you will, is the in-depth and very detailed work that the Oregon Wine Growers Association is doing to benefit small wineries, whether or not you are a member. And it's a consultation with the Department of Environmental Quality on revisions and improvements to what are called water disposal permits. They come under a heading of 1400. You may not even know what that involves or how important it is, but we do because we're tracking it along with our attorneys at Davis Wright Tremaine and some consultants who have to help us because these issues are so critical. But if you're a winery wondering about wastewater disposal and how that's going to affect my business, the Oregon Wine Growers Association is on the front of that, and our comments have already been delivered to the Department of Environmental Quality on your behalf. Whether or not you're a member, we continue to work for you. So thank you for your support, those who are supportive. Thank you for that. Last couple comments I want to make is about how the work of the Oregon Wine Board has been focused on the needs of the small and the emerging wineries. You heard yesterday marketing and communications and education programs being rolled out. If it all went by too fast, There's a whole bunch of webinars that we have that go into greater detail. But if you're not taking advantage of the Oregon Wine Month merchandising materials and you're a small and mid-sized winery, all those are available to you for free. If you want to watch the webinar to see the whole program laid out for you and your distributors, that's available for free. You heard Kai McMurtry talk about our new touring guide. That's available for free. You also have, if you've been following the Oregon Wine Board's Grapevine newsletter, you knew that we offered assistance if you wanted to submit your wines to Texom for judging in that important wine competition. The Wine Board made shipping your samples for that competition free. If you're not using the Oregon Wine Board's Resource Studio, so you don't have to duplicate all the work that your colleagues have done. If you're looking for maps, third-party accolades and acclaim, if you're looking for soil information, if you're looking for the history of the wine business, for succinct summaries of the unique and powerful ways that Oregon rules control what goes on a label and how proud we are of those labeling and varietal standards. All that work is available to you for free in the Oregon Wine Board's Resource Studio. You heard Kai mention yesterday Wine Spectator advertising. You can open up the current copy of the Wine Spectator and see the first 18 wineries that took advantage of an offer that reduces the cost of putting your winery's label in the Wine Spectator for a third what it would cost you if you were to walk up to the Wine Spectator off the street and try to buy that ad yourself. That comes because the Oregon Wine Board has subsidized part of that ad. You're going to be seeing more of those opportunities come at you, but you need to let us know if you're not getting our Grapevine newsletter. That's where all these free things are being advertised and marketed and merchandised. Lastly, before I turn over the microphone here, I want to give a special acknowledgement to the folks that Ellen and Doug touched on in their remarks. Your board of directors volunteers their time, and if you're running a business as busy as theirs is, you know there is not a lot of time left over to volunteer. But John Pratt, Steve Thompson, Bob Morris, Eugenia Keegan, Jason Tosh, J.P. Velo, Kevin Chambers, Hilda Jones, and Donna Morris, who couldn't be with us today. But those 9 people deserve and demand your recognition. Actually, I shouldn't say demand. I shouldn't say demand. They deserve it. Anyway, I'm going to turn this over. I want to make sure that I don't leave the stage before I thank you for all the inspiration that you give to me and my colleagues in the Oregon Wine Growers Association and Oregon Wine Board office. It is such a thrill to go around the country and around the world and say that you work in the Oregon wine business. It just brings a smile to people's faces. And they think we just sit around and drink wine all day, which I wish we could, and they probably think the same thing of you and your business. It is a tremendous source of pride for us to be your partners in this enterprise. It's a tremendous inspiration to come to this event and have our batteries recharged for the next year. And I want to thank you very much for all that you do to keep us pumped up and motivated. Thank you for that. I'm going to turn it over now because, like yesterday, we're going to kick off our next series of wine trials. And Ben Castile, who pulled this together in conjunction with Brie Boskoff and all of our winemakers, have done a tremendous amount of work. So I'm going to let them unveil the next part of the program, and we'll be seeing you out there. Here's Ben Castile.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everybody. If I could have our 6 producers join me up here on stage, that would be great. Saved by the bell, Darren. Okay, so these are the experiment trials that we went through. We did 6 yesterday. We'll do 6 different ones today. It's important to acknowledge, this room can, always feels bigger and bigger to me every year. But as an industry that is beginning to feel bigger, it's important to remember that we are still just a little speck on the rind of the wine world. And therefore, it's important for us to always be pushing things forward through innovation. That innovation, I find, is often best achieved through experimentation. And for us, for the foundation of our industry and for the future, that's always best done through collaboration. So I would encourage all of you who have experiments in mind or simply want to begin to do new work, to talk to Brie, to talk to myself, looking forward to 2018, so we can continue this program moving forward. On to just some quick logistics. This got a little confusing yesterday. There are 6 bars set up on the trade floor. They're kind of scattered around the edge. At each of them will be one of the experiments that's being poured. The reason that we have these people up here is to explain to you right now what the experiment was, because there are a lot of you, and they won't have time to necessarily talk it through with everybody as they're pouring through. So do pay attention both to where they are going to be and what they did, because it won't be easy to be repeated as we're pouring out on the floor. There's plenty of wine, so if you see a line that looks too long, I would encourage you just to go find another one. We're not going to pour through everything, so I promise you, if one line looks too long, just proceed to the next, and you'll be able to get through everything. A couple people that I want to thank. There were a lot of meetings at Bethel Heights. For those of you who've been to Bethel Heights know that it's not really close to very much other than my house. So Carl Weichhold from ERATH, Emily Terrell from Britain Vineyards, certainly Bree Boskov, who really helped pull this together, and two of our supplier partners, Libby Spencer from Enartis and Darren Michaels from LaFour. Went to a lot of meetings, tasted a lot of wine to kind of refine what we're doing down to these 6. So with that, I will hand it off to our first producer, Chris Birchie from Coelho. We'll talk through the rosé style experiment that he conducted this year. Chris?
Thank you. So with this experiment we did here, it was kind of like a two-pronged approach because we have multiple segments for rosé at a Coelho winery. And we don't want to make the same rosé for both segments. So I saw this technical bulletin from the Enartis website, which had about 4 different protocols for making different styles of rosé. So I did 2 of them, and as you can hopefully see, they're distinctly different. So that was the idea. 2 different kind of protocols in the sense of like the yeast you use. One has tannin, one has a different type of manna protein. So you can really create 2 different styles of rosé from the same juice, if that's something you need to do at your winery. So that was the idea.
Thank you, Chris. And I will say Chris was up here yesterday as well, and he was one of a few that I think we could have had multiple iterations from. So thank you very much for the amount that you did. Next up from Alexana is Matt Stickle, and he's going to talk you through a cold soak non-Saccharomyces experiment.
So for our experiment, what we used is Gaia, which is a non-Saccharomyces yeast isolated from Burgundy. We added it to a 2-ton fermenter during cold soak and then kept its sister tank as a control. We were very pleased with the experiment. We saw lower ethyl acetate and are looking forward to using it in future vintages.
Thanks, Matt. Next up from Adelsheim, who should get some sort of Lifetime Experiment Achievement Award, because I feel like every year they have enough to where we could probably fill the stage up twice. Presenting a machine versus handpicked is Danielle Zaro.
We did a machine versus hand harvest trial that focused strictly on how the grapes were harvested. The grapes were farmed identically during the growing season and treated identically during fermentation as well.
All right, thank you very much. Next is Russell Moss from Chemeketa Cellars. He's going to talk through foliar urea application in the vineyard.
Yeah, hi, this was an offshoot of my master's work. So we did foliar urea in Pinot Gris. There's evidence to support that doing that treatment around Braison can increase fruity aromas. So we applied 15 pounds of nitrogen per acre onto a 1-ton lot. Then we had a non-treated control. We treated them the same through fermentation. We did DAP up the untreated control to the YAN of the foliar urea. With the foliar urea, we got a doubling in YAN, with 70% of that coming from organic nitrogen sources and the other 30 coming from inorganic sources. So there's definitely a difference, and I'm not going to tell you. I want to hear what you think.
Thank you. Next up is Dan Berglund from A to Z Wineworks, looking at the effective maturation times for smoke taint concentrations.
Hi, everybody. As you all know, forest fires were a particularly big issue across the state of Oregon this year. And we at A to Z source grapes from all over the state, so we knew that we'd likely have to work with some smoke-affected grapes at some point. But as we were researching smoke taint, we found some contradictory recommendations for maceration with red wines. Some sources said that you should try to limit the skin contact as much as possible, while others said that you would extract the maximum amount of those smoke taint compounds before the wine is darker than a rosé, so limiting contact time was essentially pointless. The question that we wanted to look at is whether we would get lower concentrations of these smoke taint compounds in a wine that we drained off while it was still sweet, reducing the number of total days on skins. So we did this we sourced fruit from Applegate Valley in Southern Oregon that we knew had likely been quite smoke affected, and it's machine harvested fruit that we then cold soaked for 3 days in 1.5 ton fermenters. And then one of those tanks was fermented to dryness while the other one was drained off at about 5 bricks. And then after draining, the samples were sent in for smoke taint analysis. What we found was there wasn't any significant difference in these smoke taint compounds when we looked at the results, but we did find that the actual smoke taint was a little bit different in terms of its perception in the final wines, but come to Bar 5 and see for yourself.
Thank you. All right, and last but certainly not least is Darren Michaels from LaFour, who is going to be presenting on behalf of Deer Run Vineyards with a maturation trial in Cabernet Sauvignon. So, Darren?
Thank you, Ben. This trial I'm actually kind of interested in. I'm extremely interested in this trial because I started working with Mark Rozier a number of years ago at Pacific Northwest Viticultural. He started to take over at Deer Run Vineyards, which was planted by Tom Peters in Dufur. So I hope you guys know where Dufur is. It's south of the Dalles. And they happened to plant Cabernet out there, which might not have been an appropriate decision, but at this point it started to get really well managed. And so I was curious to see what we could do enologically to compensate for the lack of maturation, which you'd naturally expect in Cabernet out there in Dufur. There are other varietals out there that do very well. And so in this case, I wanted them to do was to take some of the vines, the rows, and apply Lavinia, which is a Scott product, which is a deactivated yeast component that is supposed to spark phenolic maturation through an immune response. So it takes 2 sprays, and it's supposed to help with phenolic content. And then I wanted to take a third leg of the trial that's part of the control that wasn't treated with Lavinia, and then use enzymes and tannins, which is hopefully, is going to at least mitigate. Potentially you could use both trials or both treatments, but that's the trial. Control on basically cool climate cab versus Lavinia, which is the vineyard spray, versus enzyme and tannins, no Lavinia spray. And I just tasted the trials. I just want to point out that it's still a red and there's a little bit of spritziness to it. So hopefully you can taste around the spritziness that's from the residual ML, but otherwise the trial should be very interesting.
Thank you, Darren. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody who helped build experiments this year, everybody who contributed. I would like to sincerely thank Brie Boskov for including me in this. She was great this year in helping to design kind of the format to help show the experiments clearly. So Brie, thank you very, very much. And thank you all very much for your kind attention during a lunch talk. I know that's not always easy. And thank you, I appreciate it.